everybody. It's Rob Seaver, Executive Director with Leads Counsel. I'm here bringing you this week's on-air podcast. I know I always say that I'm super excited about these things, but this is one, as I always say, this is one, but this is actually one where I'm super excited about doing this because I absolutely love this guy. Everybody loves this guy. That's probably his one fault, is that he doesn't have any haters. So without further ado, I'm just going to let you be introduced to one of the favorite guys, one of the top guys in the industry, Joey Liner, CRO of DMS. Joey, thank you for joining me today. I'm super excited about this and just can't wait to dig into some of this stuff.
I'm excited too, man. The feeling's mutual. I love you. We've had a really good opportunity to work together and be a big chapter of growth of Leads Counsel. As much as where you and Eric have taken it today, it's just super inspiring to watch you guys, keep carrying the torch and growing such an awesome group, and especially what we're going through today in the world. The council has become ever more prominent and needed. But I'm super excited to be here with you too, because usually we're part of a big group. We're part of, we never get to have like an on-air one-on-one, and this is going to be fun. We're going to be able to talk through a lot of cool stuff, and I really just equally enjoying the time too. So
and I'm loving the fact I may get at least more than 10 minutes with you.
Oh, amen.
It's usually scheduled for more, but usually the CRO and you has to get back to job, and so I'm super excited if we don't have to do that today. I want to back up a little bit. I want people to know who Joey Liner is. I want to give a little bit of history here. And so I did a little digging, and right out of college, you took an entry-level job at T. Rowe Price. And you were doing things. You moved on to a senior account executive position with the Loan Page. What those were, they the formative years of your salesmanship? Because when people think about Joey Liner, outside of just the nice guy and I love the guy, they know this guy is a natural born DNA full sales guy at his core, always on. Is that where you picked up, those traits? Or were you just a naturally born guy that was born to sell? What was it all about?
Yeah, first of all, I appreciate you asking about the past, because we all, of course, that's how we build our character, and we learn, and we develop our careers. And I tried to jam my whole story in my acceptance speech for Leads Counsel Executive of the Year. That was
2 minutes that you were allowed.
2 minutes. And, I don't know, 15 minutes till Bruce kicked me. I was like,
you had me crying, by the way. I was just like, holy cow.
I joined T. Rowe Price out of college because it was I lived through the .com. It was exciting for me to get into the stock market at the time. And I grew up in Baltimore, Maryland. As a lot of people know around me, I'm a huge Baltimore supporter and big Ravens fan and Orioles fan. And I was in college in junior, senior year, watching CNBC every morning, just loving the stock market and the .com growth. And then sure enough, I get to graduation and I get an entry-level job on the floor, learning selling mutual funds, get my series, and then the .com bubble, everything kind of came down and crashed. And but I stuck with it because mutual funds are all about diversification. But yeah, man, I learned a lot about just talking to consumers, just because that was a good point for me. I was in queue in a call center, just listening to consumers, just hearing what they had to say and polishing up my phone, business to consumer skills, and I thought that was going to be my career path. And I worked my way to advancement at T. Rowe into a third-party distribution role, which was selling big institutional funds. So I worked my way up there. And then ultimately, where I intersected with the Loan Page and got me into performance marketing and lead gen was my best friend, Jason Goldsmith, who I still give credit to this day, and my partner, former partner at Double Positive, Sean Fenlon, who I met from Jason. Basically, Jason and I were out at a bar one night while I was at T. Rowe, and he said, "Hey, man, the stock market's a really tough place, and I built this mortgage lead gen company. I work in downtown Baltimore, have this cool office on the water. You can come help me sell leads." And I'm like, "What is all this?" And I remember that night I went home and talked to my parents about it, because I still live with my parents.
You live at home still.
and they were like, "What, are you crazy? You work for this blue chip, T. Rowe Price, and you have this great. You worked your way all the way up to the top, the division that's the prominent division at T. Rowe, and don't do this. You're crazy." And I said, "What? Why not? Like, why not take a risk? I live with you guys. Like, I'm putting money in the bank, and why not? And called Jason back and said, let's do this." And I literally went to go work for him for a year and a half. And, and we sold that business. And I learned so much from him and Sean and Ben Levy and Jeff Say and a lot of guys that we really sat in a pod. We worked so closely together and built this business. And man, you would love this. We were selling leads at first via sell sheet, like they were literally leads that were coming to us, and we'd fax them to our clients. And then we got sophisticated enough to where we got enough leads where we could put on a spreadsheet, and we sent them out at one time in the middle of the day at 12 o'clock. And we'd call that boom time. So we'd say, get all your orders ready, and we hit boom, and we submit the orders. It was fun, man. It was a great time, and I got to learn so much from those guys. And I built up direct relationships with some mortgage clients. And then Jason sold the business. I wound up staying on with new owners for a bit. And Sean did as well. And then we came to the inflection point where one of our big retail buyers at the time, New Century Mortgage, said, "Hey, I'm having a problem getting all these consumers on the phone." And light bulb went off for Sean, credit. He came up with the idea where he said, "Okay, well, let's actually see if we can get a call center to partner with us." Neither one of us had a call center background or own a call center. And he said, let's get these, see if we can get these consumer on the line. And the leader of New Century at the time said, "Okay, yeah, I'll pay you this big premium for that. I value that. It's a warm," and we called it a hot transfer at the time. We thought that phrase would catch on more now popular warm transfer, but that's how the evolution of Double Positive took place, because we had a big buyer that wanted to do it under the loan page. And then, ultimately, the loan page new owner said, "You know what? We don't want to do this line of business. You guys, we get it. You're excited about it, but we just bought this data company. We want to run data sales." Like, Sean asked for permission to carve out that business without violating his non-compete. And we were able to start Double Positive together with Jeffrey Say and Syed Dady. Syed is now the CEO of Front Point Home Security, and Jeff Say has his own, IT business in Baltimore. And Jason wound up at the time too, when he sold the loan page, he wound up starting a business called Car Checks, or buying it and then rebuilding it, which is still very successful today. One of the leaders in business to consumer auto warranty. And so I learned so much from those guys, man. And we formulated an amazing all-star team at Double Positive over the years with Brian Appletree, Casey Cook, and a bunch of other, JT Benton, all prominent, I was talking to my former colleague this afternoon, great friend Jody Schwartz, who's now CMO of National General. So we built this amazing crew, and it's great to see that everybody's advanced well beyond Double Positive. And I got to build a great relationship with John Nuclo over the last part of Double Positive, and now he's the acting CEO and on the Leaf Council board. So, man, when people say this ecosystem is small, it really is. It really is, and it's just like, you don't burn any bridges. And I love being the likable guy. I love being the people person, because it always comes back to typically, do the right thing. Do the right thing by people. What goes around comes around, and I'm grateful for my background and my history, because I've learned so much from great people along the way.
Yes,
I really have.
Until you and I were just talking right now, and we've known each other for a few years, I didn't really ever attribute the fact that Double Positive is the reason why I have this position. But JT, coming from Double Positive and then going to Lead Qual, and then bringing me on the Lead Qual, LQ Digital now, and that JT went on to Goji and now to Workbook 6. he set this thing up for me with Corey Smith, and eventually that's how I have this job now. There was a lot
I
of
know.
other
It's
things, but
awesome.
now Double
Yeah.
Positive is the reason why I'm here. So thank you, Joey.
Well, that's the thing. It's so much comes out from our roots, right? Like that's how we build valuable connections, and that's how new roles and responsibilities come out, or in some instances, new companies, right? Like,
Crazy.
And we started Double Positive from the loan page. Brian Ochiltree started Lead Cloud from Double Positive. And then obviously stories expand from there. But that's how the ecosystem works, man. Everybody, you stay well connected.
So you're I was listening to the names. I didn't jot any down, but one of them was Jason. Is that what you said? Is that
Jason Goldsmith? Yeah.
So is
he's my best friend.
Your mentor? Yeah. I mean, like, do you have a mentor? Is that who you largely believe that when you were thinking about the things that, from a fundamental core of who Joey Liner is today, does it come a lot from that mentorship and mentoring that you got from him?
Absolutely. And it's really, not many people can say and are fortunate enough to have a best friend as their mentor. Like, usually a mentor is a figure that you really look up to and that you learned a lot from, but you don't have that true, deeper interpersonal relationship. Or Jason and I, talk all the time. We play online, poker through COVID. We've been playing a lot with friends. It's awesome, man. It's really cool, because you can fire up, an app and just kind of hang out and talk to your friends. We're not betting big money. We're just talking, having some fun over there.
I was going to say, does he hold the mortgage on your house now?
But I credit to him, one, obviously, for getting me into business, but that's easy, right? Like, it just happened to be a coincidence, right time, right place. I credit Jason, moreover, I learned so much from him, from the business, aspect of actually seeing him hustle and negotiate and work through a startup. Is like, it was a Lending Tree type model. Lending Tree came out in 1997. The loan page, I think, was, late 90s. And, I just learned so much from him, man. And I love the way he would interact with vendors and also clients. And he gave so much confidence into me that I could do this and, leave corporate America and come into this nimble, cutting edge, group. And so, and he inspires me with his success. Like, he sold the loan page, and I always said, man, like, I really want to follow his path. And so he's one of my mentors. My mother got me, as a little kid. She owned, she just shut it down recently, but she had a ladies' clothing store in Baltimore for almost 50 years without selling one article of clothing online. And I used to travel with her to trade shows and hustle and see her negotiate and work back and forth. And I love that, business aspect and how she dealt with her vendors and how she worked and went to trade shows, and bought her clothes and jewelry. So she's been just a huge mentor for me growing into the business world. And then lastly, I would say my wife, man. Like, honestly, my wife has been my rock for 20 years in performance marketing. Think how many miles and flights that I've been through and how much she's had to take on with the kids and be, stay-at-home moms get vastly underrated especially for guys like me that are constantly on the go, always on, I'm always knacking her, and God bless her for being my rock.
She's a good fit for you.
She is.
Tenacious as hell.
And
that's
you've
all
had
I
a chance to meet her.
Yeah, I love meeting her. I love when we get time to spend with her. She's just, she now is the yang to your yin or something, whatever that is.
Yes, she is.
But definitely you can see that synergy when she's together with you. I want to, since you talked about, starting Double Positive, we got a little bit into that, but Double Positive, even when I met you, you were the CEO or you were the president, moving on, the CEO. And I remember that first call I had with you because I was getting pressure to get Joey on and get him involved. And I didn't know how to do that because I didn't know you. So I just reached out to you, and you were pretty blunt with me. You were like, yeah, thanks, but no thanks. Or I'll give you like a trial, but I'm not really that big on it. And so, our relationship started off, I wouldn't say rocky, but it started off fairly cold or at lukewarm best. And, my skill as a sales rep went from that
You did great.
lukewarm reception to you were president of Leads Council within minutes.
You smart, Rob Seaver. You got me. No, you were smart. You're smart. Your head on.
You renew people. I promise you, he's going to renew.
You did, and look, credit to Greg and the group that you guys had built at the time. I didn't get to work with Greg much, because I came on late in the game, but you were smart. Obviously it was a situation where I have a huge network. Like I said, I love sales. I'm on 24/7, and the council needed more publicity, more outward exposure, and somebody that was gonna push it out there, and use the relationships. And that was my mission. I'm not. It takes a true, when we're all volunteers, and you are the rock, because you deal with so many different personalities that come together and have strong opinions, rightfully so. But you got into me in my head, and I was like, man, I really do care. I got to this stage in the game at Double Positive, and I stayed on, and after the company sold, but I really just cared, so much when you shared with me all the things that you were doing, and it clicked to me and said, you know what, I'm going to give this guy a shot, and it did, and we worked together, and I joined, shortly became president after that, but man, it's just really amazing to look at what has been accomplished the last 3.5 years. I mean, just truly amazing what the council's put out there, and it's a true testament to you, brother, because you fight so hard, and you don't have that many resources. You're running the operations of a business in day to day, and you don't have that many resources around you. But man, you work your ass off to really put everything out there.
I do leverage every single resource that is available to me, and that's the only way that I can do this. I back up a little bit because people may not know that whole, evolution of what happened. I called you, you weren't real excited about it, got you kind of somewhat excited about it. You gave me like a 6-month window, and then you became executive of the year, which literally, it literally was a legit gig, because we were sitting back and saying, who deserves this? And there it is. Look at that. Yes, that's awesome. And
thanks, Bruce.
Warren, he's only going to get 5 minutes on that stage. Just make sure. 20 minutes later, he had people in tears, and Warren's like, he won't stop. He won't stop. But got off that stage, you were like on a high, I could tell. Quickly we got you into the council, and then as Greg Gragg left, you were one of the only people to raise your hand and say, look, this may not make a whole lot of sense for me right now, but you know what, I'm going to do it. And then you took it on, and you were the face of that role, and you helped me tremendously, and you helped the council. And so I can't thank you enough for that. I mean, I love the accolade you give back to me, but at the end of the day, that edification needs to go right back to you, brother. But let me get back to, people are going to watch this. They're going to go, what love fest have I dropped into?
It should be like that. There's nothing wrong with love. The world needs a lot more love right now. Look where we're going.
I hear you.
It's okay to appreciate each other.
Yeah, especially in today, and I mean today's time. It's we've got so much division. We need the unity. Double Positive to me was a weird thing, because you were evolving not only as a call center, you were becoming an agency of record for a lot of these companies. You were heavily involved in this space or that space, and quite honestly, I was just getting to know Double Positive at the time. In fact, I didn't even know John Nuclo at the time. You were the face of Double Positive for us. And I remember we were at a corporate board meeting here in Nashville, or Phoenix, and you pulled Eric Josewich with AWL and I aside, and you had Joe Marinucci with you, which towers over everybody. You always have to listen to him. But he's a presence, isn't he? But you pulled us aside and you said, hey, I just want to give you a heads up. I've decided to take the role of Chief Revenue Officer at DMS, and it's going to be effective X, and we're going to try to transition this and that. And I remember you walked away with Joe, and you all were doing whatever you were doing, and Eric and I were looking at each other going, "Holy cow! Does he know what he's doing?" Like, he's he's going to go to work for somebody that climbs mountains for a hobby, right? Bikes
That's
across.
it. It's hard. Joe just keeps setting the bar. It doesn't stop. Man, I do remember that time specifically. Back up to how I got to that point is, like you said, we had grown Double Positive really well. We had expanded. We had some huge agency of record deals. We were getting a lot of credit for that. And then unfortunately, the mortgage market kind of took a step. The mortgage market goes like this, as you know, man, gosh, we've been doing this so long. And it was one of those periods where it was taking a step back. And we had lost one of our key accounts at the time. And or downsized, didn't lose. And I just, John, I said to John, I just think now's my time. I think it's first of all, I've been here my whole career. But I credit Joe because if he never came to me and said, "Hey, would you consider being Chief Revenue Officer for this group that I've built, of a lot of the company that he built, plus all the acquisitions that they had over the last 3 years," I was always in this tunnel of just looking at, hey, I need to stay at Double Positive. I need to just keep growing Double Positive. I need to fight. I need to grind. I need to work with John and the team. Double Positive team is near and dear. They just such a great group of people. We had 2 offices. We had Baltimore and we had at Scottsdale. And still to this day, the 2 offices are still strong. But it was a no-brainer to me. One of the key accounts that I was working on, like I said, downsized, and said to John and went to the private equity guys that owned it and said, look, guys, I think I got to take this offer. It's a no-brainer. And, it just really, it's a totally different ballgame working for a niche call center services business and an agency of record business compared to this monstrosity of a people-based enabled technology group focused on lead generation, and I never thought, hey, I never said, hey, like, how cool would it be if I took all my relationships and be able to sell media or leads versus selling these niche services? Total game changer. And, but Joe, I just, I can't express how much I love that man. He does, like you said, he towers over people. But he's the biggest, got the kindest heart, man. He always, down to every single person that he touches and works with, he will go the extra mile for you. And I'll tell you, like I told him and Fernando, who become great brothers to me, and now the entire executive team and the entire staff for that matter at DMS, that we've built a special bond, especially through COVID, is those guys sat me down one day at LeadsCon when we were seeing if this was going to make sense or work. We had dinner one night, just the 3 of us. And I went home back to my hotel room. I called Joanna and I said, it's a no-brainer. I'm going to do this. I'm not even going to look around. I'm not even going to call anybody else because I don't want to start that bullshit. I don't want to start that game calling other people. I'm not trying to, mark this thing up or whatever. These guys were genuine to me. They came to me and said that, they needed a chief revenue officer to help unite the companies and the properties that they bought and about to, to take this company to a whole new level. And it was a big personal challenge for me. It was an inflection point in my career, something brand new to go out and tackle. And here I am, a year and a half into it. And, I think I've had a lot more gray hair now for sure than when you first met me. That's for sure. And it's not just because I'm getting older.
Either gray or less. I'm not saying. I'm just
exactly.
That's so cool.
I love it, man. It's a 24/7.
I did. You and I talked along the way because at that point in time, you were the president of Leads Council, and we'll get more into the Leads Council stuff. But you were the president, and so you and I were engaging at least once, maybe twice a week on various things. And I remember because I knew how intense Joe was just working with him as a board member. And I do want to go back to what you said about Joe Marinucci. Very intense, very focused, very driven, but a heart equal. And the reason I know that is that he has had conversations with me about my personal health. He's
Yeah.
had conversations with me about my family. Had no reason why he needed to spend that kind of time, and yet he did.
Yeah.
So, when those types of people come in your life and they share those types of things when they absolutely don't have to, especially in a position where Joe is and Fernando, are, and I just got to be honest with you, I could see for you the natural attraction of why it was also a no-brainer that you could trust
Yeah.
these guys to take something that was a complete leap of faith for you and know that you were going to fall into hands that were going to take care of you. So yeah, I get that, but I do remember being on the phone with you earlier on, and that shift from the life of CEO over at Double Positive to the in the frying pan, like of CRO for a company the size and on the move, the type of activity that DMS was and is now still currently doing. I could tell for
Yeah.
you, it was a bit of like shock culture, a culture shock to just get adjusted to that pace. And so
It still is. Yeah.
yeah, what's that been like?
Yeah.
What are you doing today to kind of still deal with that, offset it, and keep the fires going for you?
Yeah. Well, first of all, I want to say too, I want to just echo your comments too about both those guys and their leadership styles. Like I can't tell you how much they have, not only with the executive team, but the entire staff, especially through COVID, have emphasized and multiplied the stress of working, we have a saying at DMS and we say it all the time to our talent: protect yourself, protect your family, protect your business. And in that order, it's like the when you're on the airplane and the mask drops and they tell you to put it on yourself first before you put it on your 3-year-old kid. You're like, what, really? But if you don't put it on yourself first, you're not going to save yourself. You can't save your family. You can't protect your family, and then ultimately the group on the plane, right? And so that stuck out. Those guys, man, they walk the walk. Like there's so many people you and I know in our space that talk, they just talk a big game. These guys backed it up. And for me, to transition to your second, part there is like, man, I've worked with the same crew of leaders, powerful leaders: Sean Fenton, Syed Zaidi, Casey Cook, Brian Aquatree, JT Bennett. List goes on, that have been very successful post Double Positive. But I worked with the same crew. Not only that, we worked in the same office, so we could sit there and we'd have it out. We would go at it in the boardroom, but we would know that we would lock arms around our decisions, and we all didn't agree, but we had, we were able to realistically, lean over to each other and say, hey, I got this idea, or you're going to bounce this. And when I joined this, what I kind of reference today is that Joe calls it team of teams. I call it the dream team because I'm a huge basketball fan. But and I just watched the Michael Jordan, Last Dance, which was unfreaking believable.
Yeah, you don't like sports at all. I know that.
But I'll tell you, man, I'm still adjusting. I'm being honest. I'm being vulnerable here. Working with such a group of power players, and when I say power players, some of the best talent, and if we're talking basketball, like I got to work with Dream Team 1 for Double Positive, Dream Team 2 here, no doubt by far, we're all scattered, so that's tough. But it's just when you go from running a company to being one of the leaders of the company. Look, I used to run all my company meetings. I used to be the voice. I used to be the face of Double Positive. I took that in my heart and that responsibility to take ownership of everybody under my roof, and just transitioning how I go about my day or how I lead now, just in the sales function and helping be part of the leadership of the entire company. But it's an adjustment and still is. And then, the work, in my heart too. And I took this role because I don't want to let anybody down. I don't want to let my family down. I don't want myself down. I don't want to let I don't want to let Joe, Fernando, or the entire executive team, the entire staff for that matter, down, because it's a big role. You know, obviously, if you're going to sign up, you got to back it up. You got to be accountable. You got to walk the walk. And I stand for all those. You know, I think it's like if I'm going to do it. So I battle those demons in a good way, you know, every day, and motivate. It's a motivational piece. It's a inspirational piece. But I'll tell you, man, and I think you know this, like I was on the road every freaking week or every other week, and I really value this time at home, being here with my family, and it's done a lot for me personally to be here with them. And I don't think I'm ever going to go back to being a road warrior, quite frankly. You know, it just, I'll be at conferences when it's safe and stuff. But man, I really appreciate the role that I'm in now, and I'm just blessed. You know, I'm grateful for it. I say that every day.
I can't say that this is everybody's take, but you know, I think that and there was a keynote. I don't know if you were able to catch the keynote for Legion Week this week.
I did.
And I can't remember.
Trevor.
I can't remember his name, Trevor, right? And
yeah.
You know, the power of positivity, the power of, and you know, you did this for me quite a bit in the role that I play, in the role that you played as president. It's easy when I can't talk to anybody about Leads Council, or when I can't, you know, when I can't frustrate, you know, express my frustrations. I'd like 911 you, and you know, you'd hop on. What up, brother? What's going on, brother? What can I help you for?
Yeah.
And one of the things that hit me about that keynote and how if you just strip the negativity, you don't even have to add the positivity in, which was something that was unique. You get a net lift by removing the negative. And one of the things I can tell you about you and the influence that you've had on my life in this role in particular is that it's easy to get down. It's easy to get negative, especially if you don't have anybody to kind of spitball things off of. But every time, 100% of the time, it didn't matter where it was, when it was, how hard it was going in your life or whatever. Anytime I called you, that power of positivity just like flowed through the call. And it allowed me to think, oh shit, he's not getting as angry as I am. I want him to be angry like I am. It just wouldn't let it happen. And by and large, each one of those calls, when we would hang up, although I may not have gotten what I thought I wanted out of that call, you know, empathy or, you know, agreement that this was as bad as I wanted to complain about, you always left me with another way to get out of the hole that I was in. And I feel that you take that role on. And I want to kind of move to a call that you and I had a couple of months ago about COVID and LeadsCon, and man, it wasn't a happy time for anybody, obviously, right?
No.
But you were doing the best with what you had. You were still maintaining that Joey Liner, you know, positive mental attitude that goes out there. But you had an edge to you that I had never seen before. And I was concerned about it, mainly because I was like, this is the positive guy. If he's not positive right now, who's going to be for us, right? But you said something to me that really caught me, and I had to digest it a little bit, because you felt a tremendous weight on your shoulder as, I wouldn't say the self-appointed representative of the industry, but certainly you know your role as a leader within leaders. And you felt that in a sea of other conversations, you needed to stay the course and say a particular, you know, this is what we should be doing. It should be about the people. It shouldn't be about profits. We need to do the right thing. We need to be definitive about it. And you took that on your shoulders, unlike anybody else in the industry. And you and I had a conversation about this, and it really hit me how much responsibility you shouldered at that time. What was that like for you? I mean, I know what you shared with me, but it had to be emotional for you.
It was, man, and it's something that we'll never forget or we'll always reference, because it's just a crazy time that none of us have ever thought would be possible in our lifetime. I'm going to tell you, I'm going to be straight. I'm going to give you 100% of the credit, because you're right. That's not me. I'm the eternal optimist. I'm positive. I give everybody hugs. I've built up one of the biggest networks in our space because I'm everybody's friend. I tell my sales team all the, I take a lot of pride. I know so much about, I go the extra mile for everybody that I network with. I know who they are, where they're from, their kids, what they're doing, where they're going to school, their favorite sports teams, because that's great personal relationships. And when I took that stance, it was because, our leadership team came together around it. Just like any leadership team, we talked it out. We had a debate. But I will give our SVP of people, Colleen Ligori, Kathy Bryan, Joe, and Fernando, and some other key players. They were the ones that were first to really act when they knew. None of us could say that we had a crystal ball, obviously, and say that we were going to know what was going to wind up happening down the line. But we knew that we had this big group of people that were obviously traveling every single week. And we had an obligation at the time because of so much uncertainty. And we all know that we can't just trust everything that's coming out within the news, 24-hour news cycle. And they pulled us aside one Monday morning, and we were on our executive call, and they said, look, this is how it's going to be. And at first I was like, man, no way. I'm not missing LeadsCon. No freaking way. I need to keep traveling. I need to keep hustling. But the more and more I listened, and that's one of the things that I, as part of, like I said, adaptation to working with this leadership team, is listening from people that I really value and trust. And we left that meeting, and I said, you know what? Like, this is it. This is it. Because I am part of the face of this company. I'm the chief revenue officer. I've been to every LeadsCon. I have the obligation to, almost speak on behalf of Double Positive or DMS. I reached out to Kathy Bryan, who's nobody's better than PR and announcements than Kathy. And I kind of walked through how I would write this LinkedIn post, and she helped me. She walked me through it. And, to this day, I still get people that, reach out to me and say, hey, thank you for putting that out there. Thank you for starting that up. And I don't want the credit for that. DMS doesn't want the credit for that. We'd like to be ahead of the game and forward thinking, but it was really putting the people first. Bottom line, it was just literally putting our people first. We had so many people out on the road, and we wanted to make them feel comfortable saying, look, stay at home. Or even at that point, we weren't at stay-at-home orders. We were still working from offices, but we didn't want people to travel. And then a week later, I think, or a week and a half later, it was, 2 weeks later, we stay at home. And then that was obviously, and then every week from there on became clearer and clearer that there wasn't even a shadow of a doubt that it was a no-brainer. But we still get credit to this day but we don't want that. We love LeadsCon. We're not trying to create like this friction between us, but we felt the obligation to make that visible, not only to our staff, but to the ecosystem. Like I said, I don't want to be the self-proclaimed leader of the space. I know I'm part of the Leads Council, which is a group of leaders, like you said, and I just felt at the time that it was the right thing to do. I put it all out there. I put it right. I never, ever, ever want to shy away from speaking the reality and truth. But that edge came from my leadership team, and they got me to that point, and I give them that credit for making that move. And we locked on. You unify with your leadership team. You have to. And that's the truth.
I think you became the face of that, and that's one of the reasons why I know it's not just a singular effort. What was amazing, I was on a webinar a few weeks back, and I remember Ross Shankin, CEO of Jornaya, was on the webinar, and there was a question asked to the entire panel, and the question was, looking back, was there one single thing, a point of memory that you can say something positive about, or something that you want to point out? And man, without missing a beat, Ross goes, it was the actions of DMS out of the gate to take leadership in a situation that nobody had any kind of plan for. Nobody had this kind of disaster preparedness plan in place. And yet a company like DMS, who has been a leader in many other ways, but a company like DMS going out, doing something at the time very unpopular, but unpopular from a business standpoint, not from a people standpoint, He attributed that as being one of the singular most important moments in this whole
Yeah,
COVID thing. And I have to be honest, when I heard Ross, who I respect the hell out of as well, when
of
I
course.
heard
Yeah,
Ross talk about that, it really just brought everything that I had been feeling back home to those moments of being able to finally piece it back together and respect it and appreciate it for what it really was. Because at the time, it was way too emotional to really measure and to know are you all doing the right thing? Aren't you doing the right thing? I mean, there were haters, there were lovers. I mean, if you can imagine, you knew what it was. You were getting shot from every side, hugs from one, shot from the other, and but yet you stayed the course. And here we are now several months later, and we
that's it.
all know that it was the right choice, right?
Yeah, I mean,
But at the end of the
found
day,
out the Vegas shut down. Yeah.
well, there's no winners or
Everybody said,
losers in this kind of
yeah,
thing. But at the end of the day, I think there certainly is a level of respect for that decision making, which it goes back to concretely just solidify the things that you talked about, the leadership of DMS, and
yeah,
subsequently why you have made the right choice again to join them as a CRO for this company. And so
yeah,
we've got only a few more minutes left. I
yeah.
want to I want to do a little couple of other personal things that maybe people don't know
Please.
about you. You certainly talked about your sports, and your love of the Ravens, love of the Orioles. In fact, I got to know you early on through your social presence, because 90% of your pushes socially had something to do with your teams, right? It was either I
That's
love
it.
them, I'm disappointed, I'm hating life, I'm loving life. But at the end of the day, always a true fan to that Baltimore, market. But then you take your family and you uproot them from your home and you move them to 120 degrees, and you did it at the height of that 120 degrees,
Yeah,
and you said,
in the
family,
summer.
kids, trust me, we're going to the right place. And now you're in Scottsdale,
Yeah,
Arizona. Obviously, double positive had a presence there, and that was
yeah.
part of the reason. But at the end of the day, it's huge. What has that move been for you and your family? And then even more importantly, that was right on the cusp of the transition into CRO role at DMS. What do you think that move to Scottsdale has meant for you? And subsequently, where are you in your mindset of, because we're now just starting, I live just not too far from you. We're starting to
Yeah,
hit that summer
the
again,
big time heat. Yeah, it's
and it's
111
not
today,
fun.
right?
Yeah, it was 111
Yeah,
today. So yeah.
yeah. You know, man, this I was reflecting. It's really weird you asked that, because I've been reflecting on that a lot, especially the last 24 hours, because quite frankly, it's been sad, obviously sad to see what's going on in Minneapolis, Minnesota. But I lived through that in Baltimore with Freddie Gray. I mean, I worked in downtown Baltimore, and I was miles away from the riots and the looting and the uprising, and it was tough, man. I love Baltimore, near dear to my heart. Anybody's from Baltimore, you look at Josh Charles, celebrity, all we do is we talk about Baltimore, man, because we love it's such when you have that edge from a city that's surrounded by Philadelphia, DC, New York, all within a 4-hour corridor. Baltimore is the one city that always seems to be, kind of left out in the big city. Oh, you're a wannabe. But man, it's a beautiful port. It's just got great history. Fort McHenry, the evolution of the Star Spangled Banner, just, I just,
The ball
love being from
alone,
Baltimore.
the Oriole ballpark, man, I remember going to that the first time thinking, what a beautiful place, for sure.
It is. It is. Camden Yards was the evolution of the new stadium molds. Everybody kind of followed that, replicated that. But I turned 40, and like you said, I turned to Joanna and just said, look, I travel every week for work, and I'm fortunate. I go to everywhere: New Orleans, Austin, Texas, LA, San Diego. But like you said, I'd come out to Scottsdale a lot for our visits out here for work. We had an office out here, or a lot of clients out here, and I'd bring the family out from time to time. Just, man, like we love hiking. I love golf. I love the outdoors. I love being, and you only live once. Like it was when we turned 40, it just said, you know what, like in with the mindset still running double positive. I just said, let's do it. Let's go for it. It was crazy. And we, like you said, we just literally made that plan, drew the line in the sand, picked up everything. And the hardest part, you know, was I knew I was going to miss my family. I knew I was going to miss my friends, my traditions, my habits that I love from Baltimore. But I've always wanted to live out west. I just feel it's a different lifestyle out here, different way of life. And it's been everything that I could have wanted to do. You know, it's just, and by the way, the trip that I think, you know, this, I did that. I basically put everything on a moving truck and had movers drive out here. And my family and I did this amazing road trip that we will never forget, through a lot of major cities, national parks, just something that we will never forget for a 2-week period, and then arrive through to Scottsdale and in the summer, like you said. But it just was, we had to wait for school to let out in that transitional period, you know, from in between. But I love it out here, man. It's, you know, most people wouldn't ever even come close to doing a move like that, but I'm not going to move back. You know, I love it here. I'm an Arizonan, and I'm still getting adapted to all the Arizona culture and functions, and still learning the different towns. But of course, I'm always going to root for my Ravens and, you know, and Orioles, and still keep close track of my friends from B-More. You know, I will never let that city leave my heart by any means. But yeah, I love it out here, man. I love being out here. It's a great way of life out here. It's totally different. And, you know, it just plays in even to more what we're going through right now. You know, be in the moment, be present, enjoy, because if I never wanted to be able, if I never had the chance to explore out west and drive to San Diego or LA or Utah, you know, and New Mexico, there's just so much out here to explore, and I want to do that.
Yeah,
I love the United States.
Well, and as much as I gripe about the heat, this is one of the more beautiful places in the country for sure. And you have to actually open your eyes to see it at times, because it's usually brown and taupe and dead. But at the same point, there's beauty amongst all of that. Have you ran into your scorpion yet? I'm just wondering.
Oh my goodness, we've had 15, 16, 17 scorpions in our house. So I'm like a pro at putting them, you know, getting them on a trap, and probably actually like only 5 in the house, but maybe 10 or 15 in the garage. I mean, it's we live at the base of a mountain, so like you said, talk about you know, being, you know, in a place that you can look at some amazing landscape and just take it in. And that was one thing I said to John, is like, we should live at the base of a mountain, but you know, with that, you get the chances higher, you know, especially when the weather turns, you get much more likely for, you know, for the scorpion to come in. We have not seen our first snake yet, but I'm sure that's coming at some point.
It most definitely will. I can assure you.
We hear the hyenas. Yeah, we hear the coyotes tonight. We hear the. Would you say?
If you would like to experience this, come on down. Joey does take Airbnb requests. Well, Joey, look, we're at the top of the hour. I want to tell you there are a whole lot of other things that I wanted to get out, but in general, I think there's a whole lot of, you know, information about DMS that's been already said and done. And I think that if you listen to 40 other webinars or podcasts, you can find out what's going on at DMS. And you know, it's exciting times, obviously, an IPO coming up. You guys bought one of the largest insurance companies in the space. That had to have had, you know, I mean, if you got a second or two, you want to just talk about that alone, because you guys went from a big company to a really big company like overnight. And that, you know, from a CRO perspective, I would imagine that wasn't carved out of your world. It was probably just lumped into everything else you had. Is that true? I mean, or do you oversee like sales for all of those brands now?
Yeah, we are, you know, we have about 8 different business units here. Some are like subunits, but you know, Joe and Fernando were very honest and transparent with me. Talked going back to that dinner about the future of the company, and you know, they didn't know obviously that they were going to purchase like Underground Elephants at the time, but they were honest and just said, look, we're going to keep acquiring companies that it makes sense that plug into our future. And there's a chance that we may decide to go public, and we could stay private, or, you know, we could sell. There was just different scenarios that they laid out, and they were very transparent about that. So I kind of knew that what was kind of possibility or laid out. What I didn't know was just the reality of which just you had to get your feet wet and dig in and see is that running all these different businesses with different processes and different systems that they were on and how they were managed as their own business unit now under this monstrosity of a group of DMS. And what's been really cool is we've made so much progress in migrating our technology and getting consistent with our processes and getting, it's just really been awesome to witness that every month. And yeah, it's for me, I would say it to everybody I talk to, with selling for DMS is like a kid in a candy store. You give a kid when he walks in a bucket and says, hey, pick out what you want, right? And we have everything available under one roof. So when I make a connection to a partner, it's really understanding what their business, like this is the cool part of solution style selling. You're not a product pusher. You're not jamming one thing down somebody's throat. You're actually taking time to listen to what their pain points are. And then as you're listening to them, you're understanding where you can help them in whatever fashion that is. Is it a call? Is it a lead? Is it an impression? Is it, traffic to their page? And so it's been really cool. It's a lot, sure. Am I grinding all the time and on the matrix 24/7? Sure. But it's so much fun to be able to have all of this under one roof and to work with such a great team. I'm really grateful for it. And, it's going to be so much fun to see where we take this, like you said, through the IPO and beyond.
I know you and I both are fans of Howard Stern, and he's a master interviewer. But one of the things that I constantly watch or listen to when he's doing his interviews is that it's almost impossible for him to stop them, because as soon as he says, "Oh, we're gonna go," he's just like, "Well, tell me about this too." And I just feel like with you, I feel the same way. But
always we can keep going.
I know, but the audience will only accept so much. What's that?
I want to interview you because people need to really understand who Rob Seaver is and what he's really done for the business in the industry. Because man, you are a special cat. You really have. I was the president, but I didn't do anything without you. You and I got to work through so much, and to see what you're doing now with Eric and the team and how well the board is. But I want to learn your path, your stories, and because I think that industry, people see you kick off and moderate, but your story's awesome too, man. And so we'll switch. We'll turn the tides up a little bit. We'll do whenever you want to do round two. I'm all for it, man, because I could go on and on. You know that.
Yeah, for sure. Like, two talkers in a room, right?
Yeah.
I've got Marty Collins already going, come on, wrap it up.
You know what, Marty? I love you, brother, but this one's between me and Rob.
It's all right. Leave this one to us. What's that?
You know what, though, man? When people are real, when they're vulnerable, if you actually want to talk about Howard for a second, he had a 2-hour interview with Hillary Clinton, right?
That's right.
2-hour interview. And I said to Joanna after that interview, I was like, man, if Howard would have done this during the pre-election, he probably would have convinced, because Howard Howard has a pretty big Republican fan base too. And he argues with them about Trump all the time now, which is hilarious. But he gets Paul McCartney, and when you get in that couch and you talk, and you're now virtually, but you're talking, and you're in an environment where you forget you're being interviewed. And that's the cool thing about this, man, is we've been able to be real. And that's what I think people will appreciate about you and I, is that there's no fluff, there's no BS, there's no pitch here. It's just being real. And hopefully people can relate to that,
I complain occasionally about the effort of doing these, 2 a week and getting all of the things. I really worry more about when whatever the normal is going to be and getting back on the road, how can we keep these going? But from a mental health standpoint, what I can honestly say, this has been more rewarding the last 2.5 months. I forget who I was talking to yesterday, probably AC Evans. He calls me every day. I don't know
I
where
love
he
it,
gets his
Steve.
energy, but
I love it.
it is untapped. I will tell you this from drips. But we were
It
talking
is.
about this, and it's very difficult on a normal day back in the day to get anybody to want to pick up a phone and talk about the
Right.
council for more than 10 or 15 minutes. And so
Right.
when I get that captive audience, people are
Yeah.
like Rob, I've got 30 minutes. I got to be off at the top of the hour. It's a hard stop, And so they give me the rules of engagement before we start. But
Yeah. You
I
have to.
absolutely am so passionate about the industry, about the role that I've taken. When if you were to go back into my high school buddies or my Navy buddies and say Rob's running a regulatory compliance
They're
nonprofit
like, what?
association, they're like, well, I didn't see that one coming. But what I can say is that when I put this hat on, when I sit in this chair, I take on a different role of responsibility because if I don't stay true north, and I've actually had arguments, not arguments, but just heavy conversations with individuals about how deep I take that responsibility because I feel like if I stay true north, I feel like if I feel like I want the best thing for the consumer. I want the strictest oversight of the industry. I
Mm.
want, and you and I have even talked about this in length.
Yeah.
We talk about things like ringless voicemail
All
and,
the time. Yeah.
and all the time. And so I just feel like in my role, and maybe it's something I put on my shoulders, but I will tell you in my role, if I stay true north when I sit down with this hat on, that
Yeah.
the council will always be with me. And although I may have to, move or shift or do this kind of thing based on the tug or pull, what I will tell you, the push or pull, what I can tell you is that I continually try to stay in those lanes. And ultimately, I think that that's been part of our success is that I also push and
Yeah.
I also needle, and I'm not afraid with a CEO who is somebody who's not used to hearing this from somebody. I'm not afraid to
Yeah.
come back and say, I don't think that's right. And one of the wonderful things about working with the council's board of directors is that instead of being that CEO where they're like, do what I say, which could be easily what they do when they sit down and talk to me, because that's what they're used to in their everyday life. They talk to me and
Yeah.
treat me like a coworker, like a peer, and they give me the respect of saying, okay, but at least look at it from this angle. And I'm
Right.
always asked my opinion before decisions are made. And that's something that is from a professional standpoint very, very rewarding. And so the council has been in these last 2 months have been super rewarding because I get to sit down and learn about
Yeah.
like a Joey Liner. I've known you for years now, and yet I didn't know that pre-story, and it's all
Yeah.
sitting out there on LinkedIn, but I don't know what's between those lines, and I love hearing that. And so I'm
Well,
going to
thanks
keep
for
doing
asking.
this. Yeah,
It's a
man.
fun time. You should. And I'll tell you, man, the content that you've been able to carry through these sessions with weekly, we all locked arms around this unity through COVID when stay at home started. I said, look, this is a prominent time for the council to step up, take ownership of getting messaging out there, unification of the lead gen community. And man, you have championed because it is so hard to rally and get the right messaging and content. And you've done a great job. You've built a great library of content, and
Sometimes
everybody
at the
should take the
last
time
minute, we're
to.
just pushing and needling at the back end, but hopefully on
But
the
that's
front
how
end,
things. Yeah,
yeah.
because it's organic. It's not fake. It's real. And sometimes you have to be last minute. You have to push some things together, but it's getting it done. And you've been able to get it done, which is important, because you've been able to get it done every week, every Thursday. It's on, same time, same back channel. And it's great,
Right at the top of the hour. I've been on time every time, except for the one time where there was nobody on because they needed a password and couldn't get in. But we learned quite a bit. Well, Joey,
Yeah.
man, look, I've loved this hour. I appreciate you taking the time out of a busy schedule. It's meant a lot to me, and I think a lot of people, especially if they'll spend the time listening to this, a lot of people know you, but maybe they didn't know something about you, and maybe this will bring them a little bit more insight to who you are. So Thank you very much. I've appreciated it, and can't wait till whatever the next one is.
Thank you, man. You know how much I appreciate you, and yeah, I think that's the cool part of these sessions is you can be real, and that's what one thing I'll always be known for is just putting it all out there, being real, telling it like it is, being honest, and it's just what goes around comes around. Like I started this session with do things right by people, and things come back to you in spades, and it's not a tit for tat. It's a great way to go about living a positive life, like that positive influence. Speak the truth, speak the positive, and believe in it. And man, we got a great future ahead of us, brother. So I really thank you for the time. I know we'll be able to witness a bunch of your great sessions ahead too.
No, thanks, man. All right, well, check everybody. I'll have this thing up and running. I really appreciate the time again, Joey.
Thanks, Rob. Have a good weekend, bud.
You too.